Hi, everyone. I'm Judith Silverman Hodara, a founder and director at Fortuna Admissions. We're so glad you're able to be with us today. I'm so excited that we have with us Cassandra Pittman, who is one of the expert coaches on our team. Cassandra has a wonderful profile to be able to talk with all of us about some differences between applying internationally and domestically, and also an overall sense of a timeline for individuals that are thinking about applying 1 or 2 years from now and how they can start to build up their profile. Cassandra comes to us with an MBA from Columbia, as well as an associate directorship at INSEAD and also an officer of admissions at London Business School. So a wealth of knowledge to share with us. Thanks so much for being with us. I'm really glad you're here. Cassandra, I wanted to talk with you a little bit about what students can do that they're thinking a little further on down the line. You know, this is May and June. A lot of people graduating from college, they're starting their first jobs. How do they start to think about, I might want to apply to business school in 2 or maybe 3 years. What should I start to work on in terms of my profile, the way that I might be presenting myself eventually?
Yeah, so it's interesting. It's an interesting question because, you know, as you know, Judith, we work with candidates who are so smart and so capable, and you know, they've all had really great careers, and a lot of them have been involved in lots of great extracurriculars. But the problem is that everybody in the pool is like that, you know, and so we're always working with really smart, really capable people who have achieved a lot to say, but how are you different from everybody else who is a consultant or a banker or, you know, whatever it is that you're doing. So I always encourage people to really get out there and get some solid leadership experience, no matter what that looks like, and it should align with their passion. So whether that's in, you know, volunteering and going and building houses, don't just be somebody who builds, be somebody who organizes to go to build. If you want to start a company, you know, you don't have to start with Tesla. You can start with just a little side company to, you know, to learn about entrepreneurship and to show that you have that gumption. And that you can achieve those things. And I think if you can start that 2 or 3 years out, it really looks authentic. And then when you come to Fortuna and you work with us, we're going to help you communicate that narrative and help you, help that stand out in the way that it needs to. But it's a lot easier for us to do that if you've been doing it for a couple of years than it is if you start 3 months before you're applying. And then the other thing
I agree with you, though. And sometimes I say to students, you know, you're doing something now and you like doing it, but within 2 years you need to continue some leadership in that. You know, it's great that you like working at the ASPCA, but you should, you know, after you get settled wherever you're living, let's see if you could maybe run a day or be in charge of a certain event or something like that. So you see kind of that growth curve. You can't really see my hand, but that growth curve of of leadership outside of work. I'm sorry I cut you off.
No. It's not a monologue here. But the other thing I would say is if you're, you know, a year or 6 months out of university and you think college and you think you want to go to business school, maybe take the GMAT now. You know, while you're still academically used to that and used to studying, get that out of the way, because certainly for me, you know, I applied to business school when I was 29, and it had been a long time since I had had to properly study, and I had to relearn some pretty basic math. So if you know you're going to do that in the nearest future, I would say just check that box.
And what would you say for students that are coming out of college, university, with an undergrad that is non-business or non-quant related? Any advice for how they might continue to or build on their quantitative background, which we all know is going to be required for business school application?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, I wouldn't be intimidated by that, you know, and particularly sometimes we work with women, and I think they're very intimidated by not having a quant background. And I felt personally, this is, you know, sample group of 1, but I felt that my liberal arts background gave me an advantage in business school rather than a disadvantage. You know, I had a history of learning to think critically and all of that sort of thing. You do have to be comfortable with a basic amount of math and quants, though, in order to pass. But if you're smart enough to get, you know, good grades in a liberal arts degree, you're smart enough to learn this math. So I would say don't be intimidated by it. It might involve investing in a course. For me, it absolutely did. I had to take a GMAT prep course. In fact, I had to take 2. So, but I took it, and I actually realized, like, I thought math was a little bit fun, you know, and so I was really
It only took you till age 29 to figure that out.
Absolutely. So don't be intimidated. Just put the time in and learn it, and do your GMAT, and you'll be fine. And also, this is kind of going beyond the scope of your question, but when you're on campus, when you're in class, just don't be afraid to lean on your classmates. You know, we all have different strengths and different weaknesses, and that's the beauty of the system of working in small groups for a group grade, is that you bring those strengths. And so in my teams, what I found was that I would do a lot of the writing for the reports and things that we had to do, and my team helped me a lot with you know, projects and corporate finance and things that might not have come as easily to me.
So it was kind of a balance, you know, giving and taking. One other piece of advice that I generally give to students that are thinking about applying is to take a quant class. You know, in a either online, there are a number that are available, or at a local community college. When I was at Wharton, where I was for about a decade, we would say take finance, statistics, or accounting, because you don't really want to show up at business school thrown into the deep water, kind of on the cold side, and it's never a bad idea to bolster, regardless of what you studied for an undergrad, but to kind of keep those things moving. And I agree with you, this goes along with just having graduated, get that GMAT or the GRE out of the way, and then continue to take classes. You can also do MOOCs online. I mean, they're so pervasive, and what a wonderful opportunity. I think that the learning is going to be harder to start again if you don't kind of keep it moving throughout those 2 or 3 years before you apply. So that's another tip that we like to share with folks.
Yeah, that's good. And like you said with the MOOCs, I mean, there's just no excuse. And you know, I went into human capital consulting after graduating, but I also started a company with a friend of mine who is a designer, and I have been the one. I mean, I do all of our financial statements, I do all of our financial analysis, and I never would have thought that I would be in that position. So you never know. You know, you never know the skills you're going to need in life.
That's great. That's a great way for us to wrap up this conversation. Thanks so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you again during our next discussion.